living on this beautiful weekend. It's great to see all of you here today. Let's start our celebration service by standing up and singing. We breathe in and we breathe out. We allow ourselves to become still and know as we listen to the words of our sacred reading.
A Prayer for Independence Day by Ernest Holmes. May we as a nation be guided by the divine to discover the sacred flame of our national heritage, which so many have given their lives to safeguard. Let the wounds of separation and division be healed by opening our hearts to listen to the truth on all sides, allowing us to find a higher truth that includes us all. May we learn to honor and enjoy our diversity and the differences as people, even as we more deeply touch our fundamental unity. May we as a people undergo a transformation that will draw forth individuals to lead our nation who embody courage, compassion, and hold to a higher vision. May our leaders inspire us, and we so inspire each other with our potential as individuals and as a nation, that a new spirit of forgiveness, caring, and honesty be born in our nation. May we as a united people move with clear, directed purpose to take our place within the community of nations to help build a better future for all mankind. May we as a nation rededicate ourselves to truly living as one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And so we breathe into the awareness of that beautiful reading, knowing that we truly are one here, not only here, but here on the planet Earth. And that the name of that oneness is the I Am presence. So as we sing together, I am remembering who I am, we ground ourselves in the groundless ground, in the knowing, in the sensing and the intuiting of that I am that lives and moves and has its perfect being within us. Together as we sing, we know this for ourselves. We know that the I Am presence is here in each of us and in each person sitting in this room, but we also reach out to bless our nation, our leaders, our world, our leaders there as well. Really every sentient being we embrace in the artistry and in the grace of this song, I Am Remembering. And resting in this awareness of the I Am presence, the ultimate truth of our being, let us bring this awareness to our open-eyed state as we breathe in deeply and then exhale, opening our eyes in love with what is, as it is, and so it is.
Though I may speak with bravest fire and have the gift to all inspire, but have not love, my words are vain as sounding brass and hopeless. Come, Spirit, come, our hearts console, our spirits long to be made whole. May inward love thank thee, and we are freed.
Thank you, Annie. That was beautiful, and thank you to the band. So wonderful. Thanks. So welcome, everybody. It's great to see you here on this Independence Day, and happy July 4th. What a wonderful day to remember how blessed and fortunate we are to live here in this beautiful country. Even though it's strange and seems troubled at times, we still are so very fortunate. So I just share that love with you. And I think in this talk this morning about ultimate freedom, I think we'll get in touch a little bit more with how fortunate we really are. The name of the talk this morning is Ultimate Freedom, My Will or Thy Will. We'll see what that means in just a minute. So I want to start by telling you that over the last few years or so, I've been a minister here for a while now, and something that's become very important to me as time marches on is that I need to stay inspired. So I take a lot of courses. I take a lot of continuing education courses, and many of them I take online. So I'm dealing with a global community. I take classes with people from all over the world. And I've learned several things from those courses, not only academic material, but I've learned things about people. In the writing courses that I take, I find that everybody is afraid to show their creative genius. Even a guy that I was in a class with who was a special agent who tracked serial killers, when it came time to put his writing out there and have people critique it, he was afraid. So we're all afraid of something beautiful that is within us. But I've also learned, particularly in this class that I'm taking right now with Nipun Mehta, who is a friend of this church who's coming to speak with us in August again, which I'm very grateful for. This class reaches around the world. There's people in Vietnam and somebody in India and somebody in Australia and somebody in France and somebody in Nebraska. So it really does go everywhere. But I've learned that also in the human spirit there is this beauty and this power and this quest within us that wants to have a meaningful life and that wants to make a difference in the world. So there's that. And then also, at the same time, I'm taking this other class that's about our featured book this month, which is Breathing Underwater by Richard Rohr. Sorry. Richard Rohr, Breathing Underwater. Okay. It never gets old for me. You all just let me know when it gets old for you, especially. Yeah, right. Richard Rohr. So I'm taking a course in this Breathing Underwater book, and we've been going over some of the book in church, and it's about the 12 steps. It's about the 12 steps in spirituality. Richard Rohr is a Franciscan mystic, and he talks about how deeply spiritual the 12-step program is. In church, we've been doing some of the steps, and this week, we're talking about the 11th step, and I'm going to read it to you, which is, we seek through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understand God, praying only for knowledge of God's will for us and the power to carry that out. Praying only for knowledge of God's will for us and the power to carry that out. Praying only for knowledge of God's will for us and the power to carry that out. And what I've noticed in this global class that I'm taking again is that sometimes people don't want to hear very much about God's will, or they're afraid of it. There's one guy in my class that said he's afraid that God is going to make him sell all of his stuff. He doesn't want to do that. And you've heard my own personal fears about God's will. I've shared it with you before that I, at times, not so much anymore, but at times I have these moments of panic where I think God is going to make me go live in Guam and live in a hut. Sadly, we sometimes have people from Guam in the congregation when I say that. They tell me that Guam is actually a very nice place to be. But the translation of that is, God's going to force me to leave everything that I have here and move far away and minister to the poor. And really all that is, the business about selling all your stuff or having to move to Guam, all that is just a projection of a fear of inadequacy, that there isn't enough God's will right here. And I'm here to tell you that there is plenty of God's will right here and right now, not only in your current life, but in what you are doing absolutely right this very minute, and the next minute, and the next minute. God's will is always present, waiting to be revealed, and we can always make a difference. We can always have the courage, like that secret agent that put his writing out there and let us talk about it. We can always have that sense of meaning, like my friends in the Nipun class, and we can also follow God's will in whatever it is we are doing right now. But what exactly does God's will mean? And what does it mean to follow it? Hopefully it doesn't mean moving to Guam. I just want to make that really clear. Because I like Santa Paula, okay? In Breathing Underwater, Father Richard talks a lot about that there are many, many addictions in life, and that most of our addictions, or a lot of our addictions, are visible addictions. Things like drugs and alcohol and gambling and sex and other behaviors like that. A lot of our addictions are visible, but there are also invisible addictions, and he says that we are all addicts in one way or another. And he says that the primary addiction is our addiction to thinking. Try it right. Just try and stop thinking right now. Can you really do it? Probably some of you are saying, I'm gonna try and stop thinking. Yeah, I'm trying to stop thinking. But you're thinking about stopping thinking, aren't you? And the other piece of that, I don't know whether he said that or I said this, is that not only do we think constantly, we have an addiction to thinking, but we think that our thinking is real. We think that our thinking is reality. We think that if I'm thinking it, it must be true. And that is so far from the truth, right? Because we're making up crap all the time, aren't we? I was reading something the other day, and I don't have the exact numbers or the exact facts, but just flow with me here for a minute. But it was about the anatomy of the eye, our eyes, and that literally we have blind spots in our eyes. There's a place where the optic nerve interfaces with the retina that creates a blind spot, and we don't see. So first of all, everything that comes through our eyes are just sensing mechanisms. It goes to our brain. So everything that comes through our eyes is interpreted by the brain, but also there are these blind spots where we don't really see. And what do we do when we don't see? We fill it in. We fill in the blind spot with what we think we should see, or what we think we should be seeing there, what we think we should perceive there. So we're making up what is in these blind spots. It's as if we have like a little coloring book and we're just coloring in the various pictures in the blind spot, making up things all the time. I had an experience with one of my blind spots the other day that really illustrates how this works, because the other thing I've noticed is that we are very, very, very attached to our blind spots. We think our blind spots are real. And this is a story about something that happened to me recently. So I've been a minister for about 15 years, and in that 15 years, I've probably been to at least 100 weddings. And of those 100 weddings, I've presided over 98 of them. One wedding was for my niece that I didn't preside over. She married a Catholic, so a very sweet Catholic priest in Texas did the wedding. He said, "There are no mistakes, only memories." And I carry that with me. I carry that with me all the time. It's very good advice for weddings. And then the other wedding was from a church member, 2 church members that are here today that I sort of asked permission to speak about, but not really. But it's really about me, it's not about them. But they invited me to their wedding, and the bride's parents are ministers, so they, of course, were doing the ceremony. So I go to this wedding. I was fine at my niece's wedding because it was in Texas, and it was a totally different church. But these are 2 church members that are getting married. And I'm sitting there at this wedding, and like I said, 98 weddings that I've been to, I've had a job to do. I'm sitting there at this wedding, and I'm thinking, who's going to check the license? Who's going to do the sound check? No, it's not you this time. It's not you. You can sit there. You can relax. Who's going to check and make sure that the ring bearer didn't run off with the ring and put it in a sandbox? No, you don't have to do that. You can just relax. You can just relax. I kept telling myself, you can just relax. This is not your wedding. But in my blind spot, I had filled in that I was presiding over this wedding because it was a church member. I was there, so therefore I must be presiding over the wedding. I had a job to do. I was doing pretty well until I spoke to the groom. The groom came up to me. He saw me sitting in the congregation. He came up to me and we had a lovely chat. I shared with him how happy I was for him and for his new bride-to-be and how excited I was that they were getting married, and I was so happy. And then he said, well, I got to go now. And he walked through the door, and he was halfway out the door, and he turned around and he said, and he pointed at the stage, and he goes, see you later, Bonnie, I'll see you up there. And he pointed to the stage. And I went, what? Did I miss it? Did I meet with them and forget? Okay, let me think. Okay, today I marry my friend. I give to you my promise that from this day forward you shall not walk alone. May we walk together through all things. What the heck are my wedding vows? And what he meant was, I'll be up on the stage, you'll be sitting in your seat, and I'll see you from up there. But I heard, I'll see you up there, and I had this moment of panic, like, how could I possibly forget that I am doing this wedding? What is wrong with me? Well, I talked myself off that ledge. But if that hasn't happened to you, it's very much like that dream that we have sometimes, the one when you're in high school, and chances are you're naked, and there's a test coming up, and you haven't really taken the course or attended it. You're supposed to be enrolled in the course, but you haven't attended any of the lectures or done any of the readings. And did I mention you're naked? You're naked, and you have to get to the class, and you're naked. Oh, but fortunately you have a little notebook that you can use to cover yourself as you go to the class, right? To sit down and take this test where you haven't done the reading or attended any of the lectures, right? But what strikes me about that is that there is this reality that's obviously not real, that we're in a dream, but it feels so real when we're in it, right? It really feels like, how did I end up naked in high school, or how did I end up being asked to do this wedding and not remember? It feels so real, and then we start filling in the blanks to try and make this unreality work, right? And that's what we do in our lives all the time. We have a little bit of evidence that says that something is askew, and then we arrange our lives around trying to make that little bit of evidence stick to what we think is askew. We run into a situation where, okay, my life is falling apart. Oh, that must mean something is wrong with me. Therefore, I have to gather all kinds of evidence to prove that there really is something wrong with me, and I'm going to work with this premise that there is something wrong with me for the rest of my life, right? And hopefully, if I can criticize myself enough, then finally there will be something right with me, right? Or we say, oh, there's something wrong with this person over here, so let me gather all the evidence for that. Let me operate under this false premise that there is something wrong with this person over here. Not you, okay? Just this person over here. Let me operate under that false premise and gather all kinds of evidence until finally I can just work with them enough so that they can improve and they can be tolerable. We're working with false premises, made up blind spots all the time, and there are so many of them. If we're struggling in whatever way, if we're struggling with a health issue, we have this idea that it's never going to get better. If we're struggling with work issues, we have this idea, this false belief that there is no work anywhere ever in the world for us again, right? That happens to us all the time. Or it doesn't really happen to us. It's something that we create all the time. And so what I'm thinking is that maybe a really simple way to look at God's will, the idea of praying to know God's will, is to pray to know the truth about our lives. To pray to let go of all of the falsehoods we are manufacturing, to awaken from the dream of being naked and unprepared, to awaken from the dream of being at a wedding that you weren't expecting to do, to awaken from the dream that there is something wrong with you, to awaken from the dream that there is something wrong with somebody else, to awaken from the dream that life is dismal and dark and a struggle, and to allow God's truth, God's will for the greater good to invade our minds and invade our hearts and to lift us up into something greater. Right? Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Amen and hallelujah. So this stool is breaking. If I sit on this stool and it breaks, I'm gonna join Mary's diet class. So and I've observed in my own life, it's really simple, and we do it all the time. One of the stories that I've told myself for years, because I've been a minister for a long time, and you start doing the math. It's okay, 15 years. Let's say I do 40 sermons a year. That's a lot of sermons. And I start telling myself, well, there's nothing else to say. I've said it all. And it's going to be really, really hard to come up with something next Sunday. I'll have about a moment of, maybe an hour or so after this one to think, okay, I did that one okay, maybe. And then I'll start thinking about, wow, it's going to be hard to think of something to say next Sunday. But what if that is just that naked dream again? What if that is that wedding that I wasn't really supposed to do, that I thought I was supposed to do? What if it's really true that writing a sermon is not a struggle? What if it's really true that life is not a struggle, that life is beautiful, and that life is for us? So here's my assignment for you. I was going to say something about naked, but maybe that joke is played already, okay? Look at your life, and see where you're making a struggle, see where you're making it difficult, see where you're making it hard, and just say, maybe this is just a truth that I'm making up. Maybe this is a falsehood that I'm making up. And see if you can call forth a higher version of reality, knowing that the higher version of reality is God's will. Prayer, God's will, is a contemplation of the facts from the highest point of view. Prayer also will help you get there. Probably one or two of us have been through various methodologies of praying over the years, such as begging God, or bullying God, or bossing God. Show of hands, how many of us have ever begged, bullied, bossed God? Yeah. So I did that in a single day one time, and sadly to say, this was after I was a minister in this faith. We used to have a show dog, and we actually had no intention of getting a show dog, but through a crazy series of events, we got the perfect dog for us, but part of the agreement was that we had to show her. We had to put her in dog shows. And we went to a dog show, and I started out all very science of mind, all very sort of Buddhist, like, we're going to this dog show, and the perfect dog will win. May the perfect dog win. And then I'm like, wait, you're a science of mind minister. Why don't you do a treatment, a spiritual mind treatment, the 5-step prayer? So I did the 5-step prayer, and I got around to step 3, which is where you start telling God what you want. And I'm like, and I now know that my dog Stella is going to win over all those other loser dogs. And then I started begging God, please, and it didn't even matter to me, but it mattered to me once I got there because it mattered to the people that were showing her, right? So then I started begging God, please, God, please, God, please invade that judge's mind and tell him to pick my dog. And then it got even worse. I did a prayer that had a lot of unprintable words in it, words that are not fit for church. If this were really stand-up, which I wish it was sometimes, I could do the prayer that I did. But the shocking thing about that, and the scary thing about that, is that the time that I did that prayer with all of the bad words in it, she won. She won Best of Breed, which is a really, really, it's a big honor and a big show. She won Best of Breed, which is huge. But then, fortunately for my own salvation, when she went on to compete for Best of Show, I did the prayer with all the words in it again, and she didn't win that one. So I've let go of that prayer. But is that similar to any of the types of prayers that any of us have done over the years? Maybe not the one with all the words in it, the vocabulary, but the begging and the cajoling and the pleas, and I've got to have this or my life will be incomplete. You know what that is? I've got to have this or my life will be incomplete. That's more of that filling in that blind spot. That's more of that made-up reality. Prayer is something totally different than that. Prayer is stepping back and seeing the world through a different lens. I'm going to read this quote from Breathing Underwater. It's actually a compilation of quotes, some of the things that Richard Rohr says about prayer. Prayer leads us to an entirely different way of processing life. Prayer leads us to an entirely different way of processing life, a radical way of processing life. Prayer is thinking without thinking. Prayer is a positive widening of your lens for a better picture. True prayer is about getting the who right. Who is doing the praying? You or God in you, the Christ consciousness? The contemplative mind prays from a different sense of who I am. It rests and abides in the great I am. Basically, prayer is an exercise in divine participation. You opting in through prayer, and God always there, willing to dance with you. You get that? Prayer is radically shifting our minds. It is, again, what I just said, contemplating the facts from the highest point of view. And as Ernest Holmes said, and he implies this, but he says it later on in the book, that the answer to the prayer is the prayer itself, right? The result of the prayer is the prayer itself, because if prayer is a shifting of consciousness, if that is the point of prayer, to open ourselves up to a greater consciousness, which is always better than what our small mind is doing with those blind spots, then the answer to prayer is the prayer itself. You have already received the answer to your prayer, but then you just keep on praying. You pray without ceasing. You keep shifting your consciousness to that radical place of seeing the world anew through that greater lens of goodness. Letting go of your false versions of realities, letting go of your falsehoods, letting go of the ways that you filled in your blind spots, shifting anew to that greater lens of perception and seeing that God is ultimately for us. God is always for us, and life is always for us. I want to give you an example of how this works, and another also discernment tool in terms of discovering what God's will is for us. There's also that piece in the step about, so we pray only for knowledge of God's will for us and the power to carry that out. Often when we know God's will for us, we all automatically have the power to carry it out. But I want to share with you a situation that happened where I had to pray to know God's will. And this involves all of us. It's about all of us, which is super fun, for me at least. So you may have noticed that for the past month or so, we've been inviting people to serve on our hospitality team, right? And it may have even deteriorated into begging from time to time. It could deteriorate into bullying, I'm not sure. We'll wait until the Prac 1 students start, then we could bully them into serving into the hospitality team. But what I've observed is that there has not been a stampede of volunteers wanting to serve in hospitality. Now, in the olden days, back when I was a new minister, I would have made that about me. Just as we make a lot of what happens in life about us. And this teaching kind of supports it. You know, one of the short versions of this teaching is whatever happens, you create, so it's your fault, right? So if people aren't volunteering for hospitality, that means to me, oh my God, you're not a good leader. You can't motivate people to go in there and cut up a little cheese and make like carrots and do all that stuff that they do, whatever it is, make punch and cookies and all that stuff. So I would have made it be about me, and then if I was really evil, I would have projected it out into the congregation and made it about all of you, right? Get off your lazy, get in there and serve. Begging, cajoling, bullying, bossing. And that is not the way I want to do church. Do you want to attend a church where the minister bosses you around? Haven't you already been to that church, right? So in keeping with this step, I just kept asking, okay, hospitality, thy will be done, thy will be done, thy will be done, thy will be done. What is the solution for this situation with hospitality? What is the greatest possible outcome? And what it led me to was a consideration of values. What do we really value in hospitality? And normally I would have sat down with the hospitality team and some members of the center and done this, but this happened last week and I was not in a place where I could do that. But what I discovered in terms of what I value about hospitality is that the hospitality is where we feed people, and it's good to feed people food after they've had spiritual food. And it's a great opportunity for people to make friends and socialize. I know I am humbled by hospitality, because there are times when people come to me after the service and they say, wow, I really love that church. And I'm like, oh, really? What did you like about my sermon? Well, it was what Gail said to me in hospitality that really changed my life. Okay, good. Awesome. I value the sense of community of it. But I also value the sense, what I said before, that I don't want to be in the position of having to force people or bully people, and neither does Annette. And I don't also want to add more to Annette's plate. I value Annette's ease and grace, and I value the congregation's ease and grace. I also value the people who are currently doing hospitality, Rita and Mia and Keith and Linda, who's on vacation right now. I want their lives to be easier too. So what is this solution? One more value too is service. I really value the quality of service, that service makes a big difference in our lives. You know, I can stand up here and talk, which I do, about spiritual principle, but unless we actually use it, it's meaningless. And service is one of the delivery systems for the embodiment of spiritual principles. So I do care if people serve. It doesn't have to be here, but I do care if people serve because it helps deepen this message within you in a very personal way. Anyway, I held those values: community, ease and grace for everybody involved, service, and then just allowed God's will for hospitality to inform me what I think we should do. And I think we're probably going to start trying this in a couple of weeks or so. And what I'm going to suggest is that we do it like when we teach classes. A lot of you have taken classes here. We don't have a formal snack schedule, but we just say, if you want to bring some food to share, bring it. So we'll serve coffee and cookies, the basics. But if anybody sitting out there wants to bring anything extra to share, we already have people who do that, just bring it, and we'll see what happens. We'll see what grows. But I am determined that it's going to be easy and graceful and fun and joyous, and then it's going to build community. And if it doesn't, the good news about that is that we get to do something else. We get to say, okay, that was just a step to God's greater will. Let's try something else. Now, the other good news about that is that this is a metaphor. Hospitality is not really about hospitality, is it? It's about everything that goes on in our lives. So if there is something in your life that feels like it's stuck or something that feels like it's not working, take a look at it in terms of values. Values are a great way of discerning God's will. What you value is God's will for you. If you value love, that is God's will for you. If you value joy, if you value health, if you value peace, that is God's will for you. So take a look at your values and then just continue to ask, thy will be done, thy will be done, thy will be done, and see how those values are supposed to outpicture and form in your life so that you can be part of the hands and feet of God that make things happen. Okay? I'm going to close with a story. This is from our friend Edwene Gaines, and I've shared it before, but I'm going to remind you all of it. Edwene Gaines is a spiritual speaker and writer and a wonderful human being. I've had the pleasure of studying with her. And Edwene tells about a time when she was early in her spiritual path, and she was praying a lot every single day and meditating. And one day she was talking to God, and she had this intuition that she said, okay, God, this is Edwene here, as if you didn't know that. This is Edwene here, and I am turning my life over to you. I am here for you. I surrender. I want to follow your will. Whatever you want from me, I will give you. I want to be your hands and your heart and your feet. Tell me what you want me to do, God. It was silent. Didn't hear anything. The next day, the same thing, the same question. Tell me what you want me to do, God. Again, silence. She didn't hear anything. And the next day, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day. And finally, after a while, after about a month or two of praying that same prayer, she said that she got still enough. She got still, she went into meditation, and she was about to start praying that prayer when she heard a little voice in her head or her heart or somewhere in between. And the voice said, hey, Edwene, this is God. I'm here for you. I want to serve you. I want to be your hands and your feet and your heart. Tell me what it is you want me to do, and I will help you. That's what I wish for all of us. Thy will is my will is thy will. Your prayer is my prayer. Let's know that now. Let us pray. And so we turn within to trust and to know and to feel that beauty, that power, that grace, that love that is God. We look beyond our blindness and now we see. We open our hearts to reveal the greater truth that is waiting to be born within us, the truth of God's perfect will for us. We which isn't always easy, but is always glorious. Sometimes the letting go is challenging. But it always leads us to greater and greater and greater life. And so in this place of letting go, in this place of surrender, I trust and I remember that there truly is only one life, and that life is God's life. That life is perfect, and that life is our life right now. It is our shared life, as it is our individual life. And so we surrender anything that is happening in our individual lives. We surrender that to a higher vision. We recognize that we may have blind spots about what we're telling ourselves, that we may be filling in the lines with colors that don't quite work. And we are willing to take God's great eraser and to erase all of that coloring and stand in this clear chalice of knowing of something better, this clear place of understanding that we are informed from the inside out, that we are formed from the inside out, and that God's will is always revealing itself to us right here and right now. So I know that it is easy to let go of old ideas and to move into the greater yet to be. That we are filled with values because we are value itself, we are valuable. And that we allow those values to inform us and to move us into right action, into the perfect action for our lives that bring us closer and ever closer to the only result that we ever really want, which is union with God. And that union often looks like union with others, or union with life, or connecting with a project, or connecting with the animal kingdom. But it's all connection with God. And we honor that, and we know it, and we celebrate it, and we give thanks for it. I am so grateful for this spiritual path that teaches us such beautiful truths that help us to live in a deeper, sweeter, more meaningful manner. I am grateful for the transformation that I know that is occurring here in this center, in us individually and collectively. And that this transformation ripples out and blesses the world as we take this message that we share, that we co-create into our individual lives. I bless this spiritual teaching as I bless all paths to God, churches, synagogues, temples, mosques, ashrams. I bless atheists and fundamentalists, for everyone is a blessing. And with a heart filled with such blessedness and such wonder and such love and just deep, profound gratitude, I say, thank you, Spirit, thank you, God. And I release these words into the mystery, and together we say, and so it is.
Show yourself some mercy. Don't be shy. You don't have to turn away. It's alright. You don't have to know the answers. In your heart, you know you do the very best you can. Sail away tonight on the ocean of forgiveness. We do not decide which way the wind will blow. Come and close your eyes and let go of tomorrow.
Please repeat after me. I am held in Spirit's holiness, divinely guided by wisdom, courage, and love. I am always connected. I see God in everything. I create joy on earth as I share my blessings. Thank you for my life. And so it is.